was really a fair additive to a political conversation. Take your own hits. Take your own hits. Pay your own way out. But the people don't want to have that conversation. They run away from that conversation.
See, let me ask you a question. Would now be a good time to buy stocks?
Of course, because traditionally, when things look terrible, that's the time for you to get in. If you think that things are bad, and you've done the history on a particular company or a particular leader comes in and takes over, then because it's a game for JB. It's always been a roll of the dice. That's why you got day traders who wake up every morning and review. But to try to make that a political conversation is a waste of 18, 15, 5 minutes of unnecessary conversation. Let's go to tariffs real quick.
But let me actually, I'll go to tariffs in a second. But speaking of tariffs, right? But isn't it the tariffs, the government, the politicians who triggered this sell-off?
Yeah, you did that with NAFTA because NAFTA is a welfare system that rewards people outside of the country to compete with people inside of the country. Let me say it one more time for the people below. Yeah, you are absolutely right. And it started with NAFTA. Nowhere on the world rewards people for creating businesses outside of America while simultaneously selling to Americans as the primary customer. That's ridiculous. The whole point of a tariff. Please go look at the Orrin debate. Orrin and Cass, economists had with Jon Stewart on Daily Show. Killed them like 3 times. Jon Stewart didn't even answer a question because it comes down to this: tariffs are in place to say, hey, and I love using Scotland as an example. Scotland has sheep. They produce sheep. They got goats, skin, whatever the case may be, wool. But I'm going to pay somebody and create a policy to reward somebody who got sheep in Austria and have that shipped in with no penalty, and they get to compete with my Scotland guy 1 for 1. No, I'm helping that guy. And then when I destroy the Scottish wool production over 10 years, because NAFTA was in place for 18 years, but people don't do that research, then you say, okay, Obama remixed it, yeah, but there was still a piece of NAFTA there. Oh, Trump remixed it, yeah, but there's still a piece of NAFTA there. The whole protection piece. And I land by saying this. Now that I've shipped out those sheep in, now I've destroyed the domestic producer of sheep and wool. And now I'm dependent on Austria. And the newly born Americans and the newly arrived Americans, they're not used to that political history. And they say, oh man, this seems terrible for us to go back to just getting Scottish wool. Well, we got to do that because you're crippling everybody else. There's no industry now. So now when the young person turns 18, they're not able to get into this industry. They would have to go to Austria to get into it. So we got to remember, again, for everybody below, tariffs are a protectionary measure. Even if you don't like Trump, know the policy and how it works.
Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like one of the rallying cries that I hear from the left is Trump's manipulating the markets and the government's weighing in. This is rich because we've been bitching about this for years. And the left had no problem picking winners and losers during the COVID under Biden's administration. They shut down 61% of businesses across the nation. I mean, it's just laughable that you think that Congress people haven't been manipulating fucking markets and their trades, which is amazing that all of a sudden these people in Congress are the ones we need to go to, including Mitch McConnell. I shit you not, Jay, I almost fell over when I heard somebody say Mitch McConnell is a great statesman. He may be, and he was saving America. He was being a champion. This was coming from the left. I'm sitting there going, what in the fuck knuckles is all of this talk about? Because it's not true. These guys manipulated for their own benefit. They passed legislation. They made carve-outs. They made tax loopholes to ensure big companies were able to squeeze out competition. The idea that our government hasn't weighed in and played around in the market or in Main Street at all, setting everything since FDR's new world order, it is laughable, even on the darkest of days. Like they basically all it is everybody wants to invest and see who can get richer. But like I said earlier, they don't want accountability when they invest wrong. And even under Biden, the AI stocks were pretty much towards the end there, like the last 2 years. Those were really propelling the stock market up to its record heights. Nvidia, all of these other fucking AI things until China released theirs, and then all of a sudden the stock market took a dramatic plunge because of the what China did, which was bullshit in itself. But I mean, go ahead and complain about it, but learn how to invest. It's always a risk. It's like
Brad, let me. I gotta get going. You want to keep the room open? I'll hand it over to you if you want.
Go, Brad.
I'm on it.
All right, guys. Have a great day. Be safe. Brad, you're in
Thanks,
charge.
Jeremy.
Thank you, guys. Have a good conversation. Be nice to each other.
Have a good weekend.
So, Brad, to your point, let me also say this. So, I'm a conservative, but I'm not a Reaganite. I'm an independent, but I have a different conservative view than how Whig conservatives are or how Reagan conservatives are. I don't really rock with that. But to the last point that you made, the liberals got to be honest on something that they're doing. Remove the Republicans out of the picture. When you're in power, why did you go against Obama for 2 years? When you're in power, why are you not passing the things you say you want to pass, like the Job Act? When you're in power, why is it all these excuses? So it's like, even if you don't like Republicans, conservatives, or Trump, or the Trumpers, what is your Democrat promising you right now? Hey, I'm Gavin Newsom. I promise to do this in day one. Nobody's making promises. They're just saying, hate Brad for feeling how he feels. Hate C-Lane. Hate that we're going to get these people out. No, make some promises to the other side. And that's what a lot of liberals and Democrats refuse to understand. Make these people make promises, because when they're getting into office, they're actually betraying you. If you didn't want this to happen with Trump, you should have let Bernie Sanders happen organically. Democrats should not have followed Hillary and try to stop this guy from... Look what's happening right now. Here's my last point. It's coming out that Nancy and Obama didn't want that candidate to run and was mad because Biden said he was only going to do one term. And now listen to all the inconsistencies over there. But you don't want anybody talking about that. That's a problem.
I agree. There's a lot of hypocrisy, and I'm not saying Trump is doing this right. I'm with you on this one. I don't know if the implementation, because again, the plan, it hasn't been articulated to me very well. I mean, it's been displayed. I mean, when you have to put up a dummy board and literally show what other nations are charging in a variety of tariffs on us, and then you can actually just go look it up. Look at the 192 different nations that we have trades. It's just okay. Why are we sending additional money? Like, the American person doesn't need to pay that. And Canada and Mexico, we had an agreement. Biden just didn't really maintain the standards. We had China too. They didn't keep their word on the trade agreement. They shipped through Mexico and Canada. Yeah, so they didn't meet their terms of the MCA. So I'm just at a loss when we're sitting here having people rally through, and particularly those in Canada screaming about how, we're just destroying America. No, what we're actually doing is just putting you back in your place. You're not an American state.
Is this the Longmont
You're not an American
Potion
people.
Castle
The Constitution doesn't apply to you.
podcast that I've
Quite
been
frankly, the
seeing on
Americans,
public
they
access
don't
TV?
have to worry about buying 80% of your goods
Seeing-
anymore. They should be able to go down to their corner store that's owned by some family in their neighborhood and be able to buy it.
You know what? Let me speak to the Canada thing for the people below. So here's the thing. Before NAFTA, I keep bringing up NAFTA because it's important. You got to understand, NAFTA is not a free market thing. It is a welfare handout for people outside of the country. So before NAFTA, Canada did what it did. What was they, 1.7 growth or something like that? They did what they did. But we've been subsidizing that. So now what are they at? 2.3, 2.8, maybe 3. So all you're going to do is go back to 1.7, 1.5, which is where you were in the first place. How am I hurting you? To Brad's point, I'm putting you right back where you were. So I'm trying to be fair and balanced with that conversation. How am I hurting you? I'm just choosing not to participate in it. What? Everybody go look at the argument Ross Perot had with Gore. The argument was, why would you reward people outside the country? You might as well just give that same thing to the inner cities. This is Ross Perot saying this. A person who ain't necessarily liking the inner city at all. But he's like, why would you do that?
The problem is, it's not, why give it to inner city instead of rural or urban? The point is, there should be no taxes. We've gotten so far away from, our core center, and we've become such a bunch of internationalists that, if we don't it's not about turning the ship around, in my opinion. I think it's about shutting the ship down.
Yeah, I have no problem with the chaos reign, but chaos has no framework. That's the problem with chaos. So if you this is what libertarians have been saying in France for years. You can have everybody for themselves, don't have no structure, but now when mobs and groups start to terrorize, those same people are going to come back to the government and ask the government for help because now they're being terrorized.
I know, but that's why we have pocket 38s and we have pocket-sized constitutions. I'm telling you, we are so far in debt that if you were like running a business and you shut down your operations and you consolidated, I mean, I'm just telling you that we're kicking the can down the road. And I agree, it's probably the best solution is to just keep kicking. But if we were really honest with ourselves, after 25 years of war, and we're still not essentially, and we're still in Iraq, we're still everywhere. I mean, let's be honest. Like the point is, if Kamala and Waltz were in, they would have accelerated this debt collapse even further. And a debt collapse essentially means a bankruptcy and essentially reconciliation, or breaking it apart, meaning that we probably would have created some type of North American new country or something, where Canada, Mexico, US, South America would have united, and there would have been like this one world government conspiracy type of thing. That's what the whole thing, I think, really has to do with, is like the conspiracy to destroy America, to get rid of the United States of America, to destroy the history, to destroy the philosophy and the Constitution, to completely essentially make it, to get rid of it, to create something new. That's what they were trying to do, in my opinion. COVID-19 is also a part of that conspiracy.
So I will say this. Look, liberals got to be honest about this one thing. I see too many times Democrats destroy things just so they can rebuild it, but only rebuild it at half strength. I don't care what policy Democrats or liberals come up with, but be consistent. So to your point you just made, which is the better point that I like about what you said, you can't go say, hey, we're going to go create this over here, and this is going to benefit the country, and then 8 years you're gone, and we're actually in a worse scenario. The children would have benefited from a non-NAFTA world. The children, our sons and nephews would have benefited from all the factory jobs we used to have. You know what I'm saying? It's like America's the number one consumer. I just don't see how. Now, people will tell you China is, but that's only Hong Kong. The Yellow River don't consume like that. Wuhan don't consume like that. China's bigger than just Hong Kong. So if you're going to use Hong Kong as the measuring stick, I don't know how you get there because it's smaller than America. But, that's neither here nor there. But I just want people to be well informed, especially the people down in the GOO. I'm gonna respond to some of your chat things, but I'm gonna pass it.
I was just going to take the. I was laughing at the comment from the one about Canadians being so united and we're going to have better trade deals with Europe. And I'm just going to do a quick history tour of this. So Trudeau and the Liberals in Canada shut down a national pipeline development in their own nation. Your energy pipeline, your pipelines that you need, run through 3 states in the U.S. Biden and the left in this nation shut down your big time generating pipeline that was going to go down the center of the United States, and you were going to be able to lease it for a small amount of cash, go through multiple states, and be able to sell it overseas. You forgot that's there. And guess what? You guys didn't rebuild after that. You didn't do anything. You just sat there, oh, the U.S. didn't give us their land? Okay, we're not going to do it. You don't have the primary ownership over Niagara Falls, which pretty much, if anybody was around for the brownout that occurred way early in the 2000s, you remember when Niagara Falls shut down for a fucking day and the entire seaboard went brown, like blackouts, people were stuck in elevators, and this affected everything from Newfoundland all the way down to Florida because people didn't realize how much energy is actually powered by Niagara Falls. And if we invested in that a little bit more and built up that power grid, we could probably power like massive amounts. It was also really great that somebody in Ohio could shoot a button and just shut down the entire eastern seaboard for a while there. We have, let's see, oh yeah, you don't have shipping in any great extent to the point you don't build it. You didn't want to invest in that infrastructure project. The U.S. widely followed suit to the point where now you're falling on Ecuador. Trump is actually going to bring back shipbuilding. At least that's the promise. I hope he follows through with that. I'm tired of seeing World War II ships at ports hauling freight. But Canada is using old U.S. ships and using Ecuadorian and Honduran sailors to move their goods across. You don't have a sailing infrastructure. You don't have a merchant marine category. You don't have civilian sailors in any kind of massive way to send to Europe or China itself. China just levied taxes on it, tariffs on you. So that one's, I don't know how you think you're going to have a really great relations with China because China doesn't even really like you guys anyway. And then you think somehow or other that you're the only nation that can give potash to the U.S. It's a vital resource. But you forget we actually get potash from South America, Central America, the Middle East. Jordan in particular is one of the largest distributors of potash. And the U.S. has, 3 regions, Michigan, New Mexico, and Utah, where it can get it. Massive amounts of deposits that we could definitely use. We have lumber. Your lumber is great. You guys have more of it because you don't have developed land. You just have forest. So you're willing to sell cheap lumber because that's pretty much the resource you have. And again, 80% of it goes right to the U.S. consumers. So you really don't have a lot of interior or infrastructure. And your whole United thing, you have Alberta, like people of Alberta cheering to become part of the United States. You have massive, you have a net. Like, what is their immigration ceiling? Oh, yeah. You lose out of the immigration per year. This is a fascinating stat. Out of the 100% of immigrants that come to your country, 30% go back. You lose 30% year after year of your immigrants going back of their own volition, not being deported, not being rounded up and gotten rid of, but actually losing your own because they don't like living in Canada. And for those that think Canada is so great to live in, go ahead. You think it's free healthcare because you hear Canadians talk about this, and their 1 or 2 experiences with the healthcare system have been positive. But you should look at the long term and the quality and the overall cost analysis that goes into their healthcare system. It's not so great, which is why when the U.S. studied it, looked at it, and said, we don't want to do this because its cost was freaking massive and it would have been broken. We don't do that. And I would be like, you guys only got your freedom from 1982 from England. Parliament finally passed your act to make you independent, and you've struggled. You've always had somebody else to depend on to bail you out. and always protect you, always do things for you, and you don't even make cars. That's American. You don't. Your railroad infrastructure is what 50% U.S. managed. You don't do that very well. You really cannot even manage yourself. That's why you're screaming about all this stuff, because you're being told you are the 30-year-old living on the couch in the basement, and it's time for you to get out, go get your own house, build it, and get a job. That is what's happening with you. And I'm glad somebody, somebody who's lived along the north in New York, Minnesota, and various other states along the north, had to deal with Canadians all the time. Every time you guys come over and you trash our shopping centers, trash our restaurants, don't tip my fucking waitresses and waiters, I don't have respect for you. I don't really care. I wouldn't care if you got conquered by fucking China at this point. I don't like you guys because you come down to America and think somehow you're entitled or that you are owed because you're Canadian. When you go down to the Floridas and the Texas and you're a snowbird and you think you deserve all this stuff, and you buy up real estate, and then you condemn people all around you for American, get the fuck out of the country. Go back to your shithole city. Go back to your shithole little, and brag about Toronto being this like great empirical city of the Western world when it's not. And tell me something else, because outside of freaking poutine, maple syrup, and shitty beer, you really don't have anything to offer the United States. And nobody likes Labatt fucking Blue. Nobody.
You know, let me say something even nicer. I love Vancouver. I love Winnipeg. I love Nova Scotia. You know, when I was 20, I was going to just stay there. But here's the thing, to Brad's point, on a nicer level. It's not that major to be there. It is a place where you really go to retire. So the problem that you have, and even when you bring up the healthcare or what have you, I'm currently in healthcare. I used to be in tech. The healthcare, the way the taxes goes on everything, 1.75% on everything, that's how you get that stuff. But everything is a little bit more slower moving. And not that you won't get seen or help, but it's a little bit slower moving. So don't you want America out of your business so you can handle your own? This is what Brad is saying, really. Don't you want America out of your stuff? Go focus on your own sons and daughters. That's what this is, and I'm saying it in the most polite way. And what did they lose? What they just rose 6.7% unemployment. This was reported on Bloomberg about an hour or two ago. 33,000 jobs lost. I know that's minor, but as far as Canada is concerned, that's kind of a major, eh? It's kind of a major, eh?
It is major. Amazon just pulled out of Quebec. I mean, that's thousands of jobs in and of itself because they tried to unionize. Trudeau and others on the left were cheering on that party. So, I mean, you can cheer it, but Amazon has the right to sit there and say, fuck that. I don't need to worry about a union in Canada. Fuck you guys. And pulled out. And now you lost thousands of jobs. Congrats.
And look, I'm a pro-union person. So here's my thing. Replace Amazon. Here's your opportunity, Canada. Come up with a Canadian version of Amazon. It can't be that difficult because Amazon relies on the postal service for 1/3, if not 40% of how they deliver. Why can't you just? I just don't get it, man. Canada, this is your opportunity. Stop worrying about what the USA is doing, and we'll take those jobs back, and then we'll sell to you.
Well, Trudeau's finally done, right? Is it the Pierre Olivier or whatever who's in power now? Because Trudeau is a disaster for that country.
Well, they have Carney now. I believe he wasn't even elected. He's just appointed right now, so they'll have an election or a referendum. Carney's a European, I believe, and he's more European because he can't figure out what he's doing, and all of his statements are kind of all over the map itself, and he has no sense of what Canada really is, and so he was just appointed. No democracy in Canada. That doesn't exist.
So he put a tariff on the cars. Oh, go
You
ahead.
know, if I would like better, I would say that Brad actually really wants to live in Canada.
So no personals, but Cardi.
It's
Cardi,
better than Australia.
Cardi just put a thing on.
Fuck you, Brad.
Cardi just put a thing on cars, American cars in Canada. What's that going to prove? What difference does that make? I don't even see how that. What? All right.
Listen, I don't. The point is, the world is feasting off of the United States of America. They're getting away with murder. It's been going on forever, and we're $40 trillion in debt. Like any American who isn't actually serious about fiscal conservatism and saving money and making money, I mean, they're just political partisans. This app is full of delusional projectionists who can't actually swallow the pill and admit that we're totally bankrupt beyond belief. It's just a fact. I mean, the Federal Reserve and Congress, with all these acts, the first one, the HEROES Act with COVID-19, it has been a nonstop, trough with pigs. We are surrounded by clown pigs from outer space. They have fucked us so hard, and it's the future generations that are going to have to work to pay off all this debt that should technically be the most depressed, upset, and rebellious. It's all those young people who are moving to the cities that are just graduating college, that are going to school to get their doctorates, masters, etc. There's going to be no jobs for these people. And if they do get a job, guess what? Their ass now has to work for the rest of their life and die to pay this debt down. I mean, without like an incredible economic miracle of the highest order, creating 40 new Apple corporations, this debt isn't even going to get touched. Like, we are all, in my opinion, the fact that Trump and Musk and Doge, if they don't actually show us timetables, calendars, actual statistics, if the Government Accountability Office, if they don't actually try to explain to America the actual fiscal cliff and what the debt obligations of Americans are, especially if you're 15 to 25, and what your return on investment is going to be to pay off this national debt. I'm just telling you, like, I can't put it in any more clear terms, but like, America's not fucked because we got a lot of weapons. But if we were actually monetarily moral, and we were not currency manipulators. Anyways, I'm just trying to point out just the realities for young people, I suppose.
Your logic doesn't apply. It's not you're not fucked because you have a lot of weapons. It's not the issue.
No, not fucked because of weapons. We're fucked because of debt.
Well, you're fine. Believe me.
Wait, before I close the mic, I just want to say this one thing from this DC Drano account on X. Not one significant election fraud arrest. Not one significant Epstein arrest. Not one significant COVID creation lockdown arrest. Not one significant Big Pharma arrest. Not one significant Russia collusion arrest. Not one significant Trump assassination attempt arrest. And not one significant Doge fraud arrest. Where are the arrests?
That's a valid point. Fair point. That's a valid point, yes. But your debt isn't as scary as you ought to think. Yes, debt was somewhere in his program as he campaigned somewhat on the debt. Because, yes, you have huge debt. I think no other country in the world has a larger debt to GDP ratio as America. But America is also an economic powerhouse which can never, ever falter. America even dictates an incredible amount of the reserves, the federal reserves of many countries. So the debt in itself is not your biggest issue. The tariffs are on the other hand, I understand the nationalist or patriotic or whatever you want to call it, the chauvinistic approach that Trump has in terms of the tariffs, because the American people deserve to have some control of their own economic, infrastructure. But you're a net importer, so this is somewhat a very difficult thing to do. Again, you'll like him socially for putting tariffs on the entire world, but will he be able to, in time, will he be able to, substitute all of the deficit that you'll find of the imports? Because your imports will decrease. A lot of businesses run on many imports. I don't know how many drop shipping companies you have. I don't know how many Amazon products are sold which are manufactured in China. So smaller businesses will definitely be, hurt somewhere, but you don't know how Trump's policies will react to all of that. Will he be able to create an infrastructure that will supply the local products that will substitute most of the lack of imports? So that's a thing. That's definitely a thing, but it's not written in stone that it will fail, that Trump will fail in this.
Hold on right there. Whatever your name is. What is the largest financial market that all these countries want? Which is why they have all these ridiculous tariffs on a variety of goods that the U.S. imports out there. You're not driving Fords around the world. You're not driving Chevys for that. You're not eating Uncle Ben's rice, which I don't even know if that's still made in America. So, hold on, dude.
We use your tech.
Yeah. We use our tech. We allow you until we bomb you, and then we just kill you off, and then we say, what I can say.
Is that even supposed to mean, mate?
We're good at war.
What do you think?
We use.
Yeah, that's fine, but you're also good at tech.
Stop talking while I'm talking. Here, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna help you.
We like you.
Dude. I just asked you to let me finish, and then you could have spoken. So I'll bring you back up since you're retarded and you can't figure that out. So I doubt you have any economic experience or anything insightful to say because you can't even control yourself on a stage when I just said, let me finish, and then you could respond. But you had to keep going. So now you're retarded and now in the good. Question I have is, where is the big economic market that's going to make up the bulk of every other nation's GDP on import and export? Their trade deals. Where are they going to get that cash cow? Because the cash cow for the since World War II has been American. It has been here. And once we went even further and said, hey, you know what? We can ditch all American products. We can go from a production and manufacturing. We can end all that, create rust belts, do all this stuff, empty the plant. They buy everything. Everywhere around the world needs to sell their shit to us. This is why Canada is selling 80%. This is why we have really good trade deals with Australia. I'm not going to knock too much on Australia today. Israel had pretty good, but there were tariffs.
That's a wise choice, Brad.
But it actually is beneficial. If you look at the tariffs rate and the things that Australia is doing, it's okay. I'm okay with some of that stuff because they're very selective, and when you look at it a little more in detail, you understand why. But then you got other nations like Israel. They were charging tariffs on a bunch of things, and Trump hit them with I believe 17%, if I remember the numbers right. And their BB is like, oh, we're going to rush to the negotiating table. I want to get you down to 10%, Trump. I want to see what we can do to make it equitable on both sides to have us at 10%, nothing more, nothing less. This is what we need. And they're rushing. You have England. Thank God they're not in the EU. Thank God they had Brexit, because right now, they are the least fuck out of any European nation, but they still need the U.S. now. They still need that. They need the mass majority of whatever they can buy and what they can sell is going to the U.S. They need that money. So please come up and then answer my question. Where are they going to go when you talk about the financial constraint? Because no other nation is buying you up that way.
So, St. Paul, Sean, they got you. St. Paul, the question is, remove America out the equation. Where's the money going to come from?
Okay, so before I continue, Brad, you fail to understand that I didn't oppose any of your points, which makes you fucking retarded because I'm actually on your side of the argument. You fail to understand what I just said, and that's fine. You can be an idiot, that's fine. The issue isn't where the market eventually will lead to. That's not the issue. You are still the most powerful nation in the world economically, and of course military, but that's not what we're discussing right now. You will still be a market but the local small businesses, the local farmers maybe, they will have trouble adjusting to the new reality, which is a America where some things will cost more. In very simple terms explained, so your brain can grasp all of that, Brad. So yes, you are right. America is still a market. America is still the richest country in the world and one of the highest GDP per capita in the world. So yes, you're still a fucking market, and you won't be out of the equation by any means. Likewise, the other way around, your exports still matter because we like your tech. We like Facebook, we like Meta, we like WhatsApp. The whole world runs on LinkedIn. So please do understand before calling me retarded that I'm on your fucking side, you fucking idiot, that you are right, that you will still be relevant. The only problem you'll see is that local businesses will have to have time to adapt, and whether Trump will facilitate that remains the question, because that will require some investment.
Well, I'm gonna speak to that after Sean.
Hold on, see lady, just a second. So that's a great answer to the questions I didn't ask. And you don't know what side I'm on. I love when people assume they know what side I'm not on any side that you actually proposed. And the idea that what I stated earlier, to go with your fan club in the chat there, about the U.S. will just bomb and blow shit up. I don't know how many times we've had to do this, but we can go through the history of conflicts in which case we've done that. I'm sure if you opened up a history book, you can figure that out. I mean, we quite literally have a fucking banana war on this nation. Go Google it. Find out what it was. And you realize, oh shit, we literally went to war to have cheap fucking bananas and produce. So, before I go into the chat says, hey, I don't know what I'm talking about, the U.S. will absolutely leverage destabilization and warfare to achieve economic power over a nation. In fact, we have 60% plus of the rest of the world under sanctions. So economic sanctions, like Burma. Who the fuck cares what Burma has? But we have them under economic sanction. So, I mean, we have all these things going on around the world that we quite literally leverage in order to use the U.S. So no, I don't fear what other nations are going to do. I don't fear what Canada does, because quite frankly, if we flexed our pinky, they would just become Greenland. And that's the extent of their economic power, their military power, and their place in the world. No one's asking Canada to foster peace negotiation. No one's asking Canada to sit down there and say, hey, come in and save these people. Canada doesn't get asked at any point at the table. They're still at the kids' table for Thanksgiving. They're not at the grown-ups table. They're drinking fruit punch instead of actual punch. And so, Bud, I don't know where you're going, but like I told you, nothing is going to change in terms of the U.S.'s presence, because either we do it by military or we just sit there and say, we'll buy your good. That's it. And we have the large economic. The problem that all these other nations, particularly Northern Europe, and all these great nations that have happy indexes that say they're the best nation in the world, they need their fucking banks padded by U.S. dollars. Their social programs, their infrastructure programs, to the extent that they have them, will be non-existent. They'll be so decimated by a lack of U.S. money. If we decided to levy and push that, it would be absurd. We could collapse Finland for being the happiest. We can do it to Switzerland and Norway, and fuck, we can do it to France for the most part. Not that they needed much, because they're all fucking bullshit there anyway. So spare me this. I'm retarded. You're not on my side, and I don't really give a fuck whose side you're on. Provide the conversation. And again, the reason I called you retarded was because you couldn't shut up while I was talking. You continually jumped in. So yes, you are still retarded, and or either that, or you just don't give a fuck about marriage. But I was being polite to you, and I brought you back up.
Rolo brought me back up. That's fine, mate. Listen, if you can have a civil conversation, then you obviously will have to track back to what you just said. You have the economic power, and that's the point where I agree. You don't even have to militarily invade any country, because you would be able to, do enough with sanctions or any other kind of pressure that you often have been doing throughout the history. So no one doubts that you can do whatever the fuck you want in this entire world. No one's doubting that. The issue is whether you, as a taxpayer, would actually have to agree with that, because you have your problem. You have your own socio-economic problems. You have still many people who are homeless. You still have loads and loads of issues with, I guess, healthcare to some extent, or I don't know, some liberal issues. It doesn't matter. You have your own issues, and you, as a taxpayer, should be very, very upset with any kind of policy that doesn't help your country. So a war, for instance, which is totally futile for you, you should oppose. And that's just logical, and that's thankfully what Elon Musk is doing with this dope shit. So yeah, that's where you should be.
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, so the thing that you're not factoring out, buddy, is we have foreign trade zones. When it comes to a foreign trade zone here in the United States, you can literally be able to delay paying tariffs until goods is left the FTZ zone, and you can avoid tariffs if the goods are re-exported. You can be able to pay lower tariffs if the product is finished and has a lower duty than the imported parts. So when it comes to this situation, large corporations will just go to the FTZ zones and assemble and manufacture in the foreign trade zones here in America, exporting the finishing good out of the United States, avoiding the tariff completely. So when it comes to entering goods into United States commerce, often paying a lower duty rate. So that means that anybody that's in Germany, Europe, that has auto parts with 25% tariffs are brought in, essentially repatriation. This is forcing repatriation into the United States. And like Howard Lutnick says, we have $5 trillion in commerce literally committed. So when it comes to this situation, that's not a maybe, that's not a sometimes, that's actually what's on the books. 1.4 trillion from Saudi Arabia, 600 billion from UAE. Japan is literally pledging trillions of dollars of investment. We got Hyundai, Toyota, and we have the largest shipping company literally repatriating to the United States. So when it comes to the industry that benefits the most, automotive, electronics, apparel, textiles, aerospace, pharmaceuticals, consumer good imports, this is really going to lead to $1 billion in savings, like companies like BMW, Mercedes-Benz, GE. They will save hundreds of millions of dollars each in these foreign trade zones, avoiding or reducing Trump's tariff. So this is just a scenario where people don't understand the true dynamics of American economics, and also the tax exemptions, the tax deductions, and the ability to write-offs that the companies and corporations possibly would get. So we can have oil imports go to the foreign trade zone. We can have big Beamers, Benzes, Bentleys, whatever the situation is. This is literally going to be a deference. So when it comes to the Foreign Trade Zone Board, it's ran by the Department of Commerce, aka Howard Lutnick. And the beautiful thing about this situation is it's duty deferral. No duty is paid until the goods enter the FTZ zone. And if the duty is only paid when goods leave the foreign trade zone or eliminated. So, all this fear-mongering is the globalists that's really hyperventilating, trying to get regular people that don't benefit from globalism to be on their side and say, look what they're doing to us. No, look what they're doing to you. You got to repatriate the United States or use these foreign trade zones or lobby in order to be able to figure out what the solution is. But even Trump says that certain exemptions, that's not a foreign trade zone, mind you, certain exemptions has been eliminated. So they'll be forced to repatriate or go to the foreign trade zone. So when it comes to the inverted tariff relief, if the product is finished and has a lower tariff than the components, companies pay lower duty. So for example, parts taxed at 12%, finished product will be taxed at a 5% rate, and the company pays 5%. So when it comes to the logistics cost reduction, no custom duties on labor, overhead, or profit in the foreign trade zone reduces the landed cost per unit. So all this hyperventilating from all these European economic specialists, and they went to this school, this corporation, went to that school, you're not factoring in that the United States is a very complex situation, and A lot of these corporations have a lot of experts that knows what is the game and how to be able to still do business with the United States without dealing with the brunt. But the whole goal is repatriation. Either you cut your tariffs, repatriate, or do both. And I yield my mic. Thank you, Brad.
So, Sean, you're absolutely right. You and I are business guys. We understand that these people can easily create assembled companies here and call it a wrap. But the problem is, and Sean, I said this 2 years ago. People are so accustomed to the NAFTA way of living that it irks them. It irks them to say, you know what? Scottish people get to have their own stuff. Irish people get to have their own stuff. Why wouldn't America just say, you know what? Hey, you wanna do bananas? Gotta buy it from us. You want to do? If not, go do what you do. We're gonna be okay. California is bigger than most African countries. Go look it up mathematically. For those people who like algebra, I don't care. I'll just sell to California, and I'll be alright. That's my point. It's like people sit up here and say, you know what? I'm mad because I don't like change. Now, this is nobody on stage. It's just people in general. I don't like change. Well, how do you think I felt when they got rid of all these darn union jobs? When Bill Clinton was telling people, we will retrain you. And that never happened. Right. So it's like, I understand the anger when, George W. says, hey, there's weapons of mass destruction, and there was none. I get it. Now is another one of those moments. Granted, and please don't, like I said earlier, please, everybody stop bringing up Wall Street. Wall Street is an independent game. It has nothing to do with the state of New York. It has nothing to do with the state of Vermont. It is an independent game. Policy is totally different. And I'm going to land by saying this here. Here's your opportunity to find a guy named Sean, send him a couple of million so he can create an assembling company for your company in Sweden. Instead of crying about, we got to pay these taxes. No. Hey, Sean, I heard you talking, man. We got about $20 million. Let's see if you can find us a building. This is an opportunity for everybody.
That's where you need some nuances. I'm not saying
that is a nuance. What I just said is a nuance because the media's not telling you what a foreign trade zone. Did you know what a foreign trade zone before I told you? Probably not.
Of course I do.
So you're attacking people with ad hominem attacks while we're giving you actual strategies that multinational corporations and people that are in the import-export game is literally utilizing right now. So when it comes to this situation, the stock market is literally being sold off because of news, not the fundamentals of the economy. And actually, we can possibly get rate cuts because of the situation. Yeah.
Sure. Foreign trade zones can exist. That's not the issue. I understand.
But that's the solution how to avoid it.
No, the issue is not. Why would you avoid it when it's government policy? Trump wants to have tariffs. So
it's repatriation. So you don't understand. Do you understand the term of repatriation? So
sure.
You can assemble and manufacture in these zones and still give the same economic benefit as if the tariff wasn't there. But it's going to help our domestic growth.
I'm talking. I hope so. I hope it will help you. I hope all the companies, repatriate back from Ireland instead of having their operation. I hope so for you. I'm not anti Trump or anti-America or whatever. I don't know what gave you the impression. The issue I'm posing, which is an economic, which is yes, all the big tech companies, all the American tech companies are generally based in places where taxes are lower. Meta and LinkedIn and indeed all the American big tech companies are generally there. Google too, by the way. But that's fine. That's not the issue. If Trump wants them to repatriate, then he will probably be able to do so. The issue is more. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. The issue is what I'm saying. Well, let me finish my train of thought, mate. So the issue is whether you, because you are a net importer, your import is, I guess, more than 2 times your export. That means that loads of products that come from outside of America, which are so cheap right now, they need to be substituted with local products. Most of them, not everything, but most of them. That's the reason why I'm saying, will America in time be able to grow, I don't know, an industry where plastic production or toys, for example, or whatever, I don't know, would they be able to make it so that the American people still get access to all the products, all the produce that it has today when those tariffs are up? That's the issue I'm posing.
Let me answer. So before we had NAFTA force us to not do exactly what you're talking about, you got to know the history of your question. We were forced to not do what you're talking about with a policy from Congress, signed in by Bill Clinton. No, the first version was Reagan, and that was signed in by 41, Bush Sr. Then Clinton did another version. So this forced us to do what you're talking, not do what you're talking about. We had Made in America bumper stickers when I was a little kid everywhere. People were shaming other people for not buying American. All right, that was a thing. So when you ask the question, will we wanted to do that, but we were forced through a policy not to do it. Part of the original NAFTA under Reagan that Bush Sr. signed in, we had to get rid of all of those Made in America commercials. We couldn't have that. It was part of NAFTA. We couldn't have it. So the answer to your question is, when you research that we were forced not to have those companies and have those factories and have those fabrication models, then you'll say, oh, I get what C-Lay's talking about. Once that no longer exists, because it's 20% still in UMAC, it's still 20%. Once that goes away, then they can come and do the American Pride bumper stickers again. Then they can come and do the Buy America again. Then they can come, they're not allowed to do it. That's what you don't understand. So yes would be the answer to your question.
I don't understand what you're referring at, because no one questions the fact that Americans can produce whatever the bloody hell they want. You're the richest country in the world. Of course you can produce anything you want.
We were not allowed to produce.
Okay, but that's something different. I'm talking about the absolute capability, because you can produce them.
Yes, there
is. The issue is you have. Let me make this very simple.
Go ahead.
Let me make this very, very. I'll give you an example. Imagine a local company, which uses plastic molds for something, right? He imports that stuff from China, let's say, right? This local company has to now deal with tariffs much higher. You understand that, right? This local company needs to adapt to another local producer to still get those parts. Now the problem is wages in America are much higher than wages in China. So your product will not only be delayed, but it will be also more expensive. Now the fact that you can produce it, yes, 100%. And you should be proudly producing your shit. America can sustain itself without any problem. It's one of the largest and most powerful countries in the world. No problem there. The issue is you will have to pay the cost of these tariffs. Now there will be some revenue when you import. There will be some revenue when you impose those taxes because you'll get a higher tax income. So these will balance out a bit, but not in time. So the local company that I'm talking about, which uses Chinese parts, will suffer for a while. And that's what I mean when Trump needs to make this work, even though it's, I guess, commendable, especially on a cultural and social level, that he's imposing tariffs. But there is a cost. And that's the only thing I'm talking about. And made in America is not an issue. That's not what I was referring.
So here's my question to you. Very, very simple question. If I do exactly what you're talking about, the model you just said, but I make more money only selling to California, why would I need to even worry about China?
The other thing he's missing out on, hold on, the other thing you're missing out on is, again, the U.S. can produce it. The guy around the corner can. He may have to pay more for that tech company. In fact, we were already trying to do that. Democrats were at the helm of that. The chip bill, anybody? Remember that? We wanted to take control from China and Taiwan and all these overseas and build our own chips. So at some point in time, we actually believed in this shit. And we were still slapping tariffs because under Biden's administration, they were slapping tariffs. And yes, the U.S. can produce cheap goods. We just don't have a tendency to do that. We don't create a lot of crap. I mean, the only time we create crap is when we just slap the Ford label on it and then ask Canadians to build it for us. Then it becomes crap. It's the same thing with China, Vietnam, all of these other nations. It's cheap labor. And if you're fine with fleecing an entire population, that don't, like, I really hate this, like, dichotomy of ideas here. Like, you need to have cheap labor around the world, otherwise our shit's going to cost more. But at the same time, in America, you have the people screaming for a mandatory minimum wage and a living wage and all of this other factors that would cause the prices to go up. I would argue that we could probably produce cheap goods in America selling them. It may cost a couple cents more, but I don't really see that mold increasing dramatically because another American company is selling that en masse. We actually do sell cheap goods. We actually do sell economically within market ranges goods in America that are made by millions of Americans every fucking day. So this idea that somehow we need to impoverish another nation in order to get it, no, but Apple gets a big, huge tax loophole to have their iPhone created overseas. They don't have to pay all that. They don't have to maintain OSHA standards. They don't have to provide benefits. They don't have to worry about unemployment insurance. I mean, one dead Chinaman goes through a fucking mixer and they're like, you know what? We'll just call it the new color on the iPhone and we'll just call it splatter. And they move on with it. They don't give a fuck. They don't pay. A sack of rice and $1 at the end of the month is about the best they can do. And you're okay with that. But a lot of Americans kind of feel about that. I would at least hope so, because we don't really like having those scenarios. We don't like seeing guys have to work 20 hours a day and then have to put suicide nets after the third story so that they don't jump out and kill themselves. These are things that we see, and we're just like, nah, we don't really like that. We don't like our agricultural community fleeced to the point that it's below 1% right now. We don't like that and having to rely on other product makers to do that. We don't like that. We like our farmers. We like people who tend the earth and raise animals and feed us. We really love these people. We should. And if you don't, you're retarded because you actually probably should not be in existence anymore. You should just hold your breath and put your head in a plastic bag. But all of this shit you're talking about, nah. And here's another crazy idea that you people on the left that claim you're on my side, but you aren't really on my side. There's also competitors. So not only will the guy down the street create your plastic molding, there's going to be another guy and another guy. And so they're going to bid for these contracts. They're going to try to sell their product, which always happens in America. And if the government would get out of the way, we'd have market stabilization. We'd be fine. We'd actually be able to produce shit and be fine because we'd have competitors that would set the rate. And if some schmuck wanted to go buy molding that was $20 when his competitor produced the same for $10, it's simple. I would have gone for the 10, but you can go for the 20. You can go ahead and do it. I don't really care, but I think you're putting a lot in there that really doesn't need to be in there, and it's not necessarily true.
Which part wasn't true?
The idea that Americans would absolutely have to pay through the nose for other goods made in America.
But
Yeah, I think that's my greater point is that what you keep omitting is like kind of what Brad just said. You keep using the model of the slave labor must be used. Yes, that has been the way for 16, 18 years. But prior to that, the culture of America was, hey, these black and whites don't like each other here in America, but they're going to support each other over you guys. That's a real thing. It's hard to explain to other people. It's extremely hard to explain to other people because you got to understand the mentality here is, okay, I'm going to pay an extra couple of $100 for that, but it's made in Vermont. I feel good about that because I know I can call that Vermont company if something goes wrong and I can get that Vermont part. It has, look, that darn black company over there, I really don't even like black guys, but you know what? I can call those black guys and I can get that part. There's something to that rather than I can't reach China. They sent me the wrong thing. They sending me over to Malaysia. I'm sorry to bring this race into it, but I just want to let you know on the extreme level how we Americans, even if we don't like each other, we love dealing with each other more so than people outside. That's just a real thing when it comes to our consumer base. So if you allow us to have the option between, hey, I'm going to get that Hyundai that I like, but I'm going to go through Sean, who's the assemblyman in Michigan for that Hyundai. I'm going to go through Sean because I know I can reach out to Sean. And it's something about that buying mentality. And here's my last part. The reason I keep mentioning that California is bigger than most countries, we used to have this in music. We used to tell people this all the time. You could make more money just selling only to California than you can if you went from Sweden to Germany to it's more of a hassle to be global sometimes. And I just think that's something people don't understand.
I think people sell their products wherever they can. I don't think if a company sees a market in Sweden and can make money of it, I don't believe that they will only focus on California. I mean, this is just how business works. That's the way these.
No. We didn't say only. We didn't say.
No, I know what you're saying, but have that in mind. Listen, I'm not saying you guys aren't right. I think we're arguing different issues. I'm seeing what you guys want, and you're patriotic, and that's fine. And America, whoop-de-doo. I love your country. You're a nice country. I like Trump, but you guys shouldn't be oblivious to many factors that are into play. You guys can hope for just local products and made in America, and you should. That's nice. That's a great thing. But don't forget that all that is what is in Target today, or Costco, or I don't know where you guys shop. I'm not judging anyone for their choices, but most of it's made in somewhere else, and simply because Americans want cheaper clothing. Not because, I mean, you can sit here and say it with a straight face that Americans will pay that extra dollar. Maybe you're wealthy. Maybe you do well. You're better off. You're doing well for yourself. But there's loads of families in the Midwest that are prepared to pay for $300 for just shoes. These people need to have.
Hold on.
So these people need to have access.
Hold on. This heartstring mentality is fucking bullshit. It's crap. It's fucking retarded, and it has.
What?
So the whole point of having a Rust Belt and people in the Midwest not able to afford shit and being stuck on opiates is because we took away their production and manufacturing jobs. We allowed their cities, their towns, their factories to rust out, become hollow, to go over there to fucking support your prissy asses so we could go buy stupid shit in Target. That's really what happened. I'm okay with it right now for a short term. If that guy can't afford groceries, I'll give it to him out of the back of my pocket. I'll buy him a sack of fucking whatever he needs. I'm okay with a short-term resolution for that, as long as we're going to bring those jobs back. You're right. That guy can afford an increase. Why? Because fucking retarded people like you want that globalization, that continued fucking fracturing, that destruction of the middle class that we used to have for a brief period.
Fucking stupid, Brad.
You know, like, dude, I'm telling you, like, this whole appeal to the heartstrings, fucking work with me. I don't give a fuck what you guys want overseas.
You gotta understand, you guys don't understand Americans.
No.
He's telling you what I just told you.
He's in
But Brad isn't right, because Brad doesn't know how shit works.
Brad is telling you the exact thing I just told you. The Americans are different.
Yes, you lovely. That's lovely that you guys are different. But there are you're going to tell me what a
Tell you something. You're gonna shut up for a minute. I don't give a fuck what you in England, France, or whatever the fuck else country you're in have to say. You would be speaking fucking German right now if it wasn't for America's money. Oh, and Russian fucking blood that was spilled. Two nations that actually were enemies that had to come in and bail your wanker fucking asses out. Your fucking busted teeth, spineless.
Fit into the Constitution. The Congress does not fit into the Constitution. Does not fit into the Constitution.
What if I told you that there is a company owned by the Chinese Communist Party, independently operating over 80 retail stores on United States military bases? Let me be clear. A foreign adversary has a physical, ongoing presence on our military installations, inside the wire, with possible access to our personnel and their information. These stores are not directly monitored. What if I told you that there is a company owned by...
There's a difference. She's talking about contextual knowledge.
Did somebody say contextual knowledge?
Yeah, well, every claim that has been made about God is, it's not based in reality.
How do you? Who are you to determine what is reality and what is not? It's an energy.
No, Simon gets the final word on all words. He only understands what words mean. None of us understand what words mean. And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and God was the Word. So explain that one, smarty pants. Contextually speaking, of course, Dr. Simon. Thank you very little. I am complete.
Ultimately, what are words, right? Like, words are just sounds, are frequencies that make things happen. I mean, we attribute meaning to these sounds that we are producing. Which is subjective. That we are producing as some reality in your brain, Simon. But what are words? It's not just energy into a frequency. What is reality?
Because I think Simon's going to say...
You want it to be...
Go ahead. Is this again what Simon says?
No, go ahead, Simon.
This is how this conversation derailed because...
Simon, are concepts real? What do you mean real?
It said that you can't have the concept if you don't have the word. The word and the concept, it's one-to-one.
Simon, we're trying to understand what you think are real. That's why I'm asking you, are concepts real? Are in existence? Are they physically in the world?
But
concepts are mental integration. Not all things are physical.
Concepts are mental
How do you
integration.
internet?
So,
How does
Simon,
your work through
Simon, what is a thing? What is stuff?
What do you think it has to be tangible for it
That
to be
is
thing?
only a noun. It's only a concept. And it to the very beginning of the conversation, like, we're all atoms, right? And the only thing that is, it's not like there is a wall, that is containing those atoms. It's kind of like almost like a bridge. See,
Look, this is the wrong way of tackling things, Isabel. Ask him a simple question. Is Cookhouse part of reality?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes,
so was Cookhouse part of reality 20 years ago?
Why does Edmund always say it's not real?
Let Randy.
Cookhouse was part of reality now. Was it part of reality 20 years ago?
We're back here.
Oh my God! Let Randy talk.
I'm not even talking. I'm just asking a question. He said Cookhouse is part of reality today. Was Cookhouse part of reality 20 years ago?
No, it wasn't.
Therefore, reality changes, and it is not this. It's dumb. Dumb, nigga.
That doesn't make any sense. I never made a claim. I never made a claim saying things can't come into existence.
So reality changes, Simon.
Yeah, I never said reality can't change.
So Simon is
the precondition. Look, my claim is the precondition for
You're beginning to understand the government. It's like the science says, but then the science changes, right? It's like
no, that's not. That's
right.
The constant is reality in that scenario.
No,
my claim
reality,
is that
by your
reality
definition,
is
then,
what it
is
is,
just your
and the
current level of
precondition for
understanding.
Clubhouse
That's it.
existing
If it's
is
subject to
reality.
change,
I don't know
Okay, I
why.
got Simon.
Okay, this is the Republican podcast. I just boomed that room, everybody. I don't know if you'll listen to this replay, but that was me that boomed the only friends room. I mean, to listen to Randy, that's like a collection of another hour of wasted time, but I'm not doing that. I'm sitting here like rebranding things, so I wasn't going to sit there and record all that because I'm about to shut down these recordings. I didn't want to record any of that. I've heard all that bullshit before. It's stupid. It does get back to the point as concepts and words and sounds, you know? And people's, I guess, grandiose final interpretation of words to a certain extent. Something to that extent.